Hey, welcome back to my channel, and today it's going to be an interesting one. As promised, this is To-Do List App in React. Yes. So we've done in JavaScript two types of apps, two types of codes in two tutorials, and this time it's going to be in React hooks. So let's go to our JavaScript code editor here, import React as usual for React, and use state from React. And you know why use state is used? It is changed for updating the state values. That's the hook. Then import the React DOM from React DOM. This is the standard code for React. And then then you start doing the functions here. So the first function that we are implementing is the to-do. As it's a to-do app, right? You can call it whatever you like. I'm calling it to-do. And then you have these variables. I'm using the to-do variable, then the index, because you want to know at the items at which number, right? And then complete to-dos, that is the completed ones or the done ones, done items, and the remove to-do, that is the items that you want to remove. Okay. So here, what do you want the function to return? So we are making a container, that's a div. So the open and close div element, of course, for the container. The div has a class name of to-do. Again, that's up to you what class name you want to call it. And I want to do a bit of inline styling also here. So when you remember in React JSX, when you're doing the inline styling, yeah, then you need double curlies. Remember that in React. And this is called JSX, as you know, because you're doing the HTML, inserting the HTML into the JavaScript function. So this is called JSX, and here you need for inline styling double curly. So text decoration, using the text decoration property, we are doing this ternary operators method, whereby it's a conditional operator, right? So if the to-do is a completed one, yeah, if it is true, if it's a completed job, the to-do item, then you do a line through. So when you strike off, so you know it's a completed item. If not, if it is false, then nothing is done. So it's an empty string. And then within the curly braces, you do the special expression. You remember in JSX, if you want to output a value, you use the special expression here within the single curly braces and write to-do.text. So basically, what is the item that is going to show up there? The text that you're inputting in the input field. So it's the to-do.text. So to-do.text will output the text that you are putting there, keying in there in the input field. So this is a special expression. To-do.text will actually output the value there if you write it like this. And then another container. What all buttons do you have? Okay, so one button you need for mentioning the done job or the complete job when the user clicks on it. So button on click, that is a complete. The other one you want for removing the item or deleting the item. So these are the two buttons alongside the items that you're adding. So button on click, and then this is called the arrow function, if you remember. So button on click, the arrow function. So what's happening? This arrow function will implement the complete to-do with an index. Why index? Because every time you're not going to, when you click the button, when the user clicks the button, he's not going to delete out, he's not going to strike out all the items, the done items, only as per the index. Maybe the first item, second item, seventh item, whichever. So that's the index, the usefulness of the index. And then you do the similar button on click event also for the button on click implementation, also for the other button, which is the remove button or the delete button. Yeah, so button, you call it the delete button. So if you write it within the button delete, it will show as a delete button, and then write the arrow function here again for the remove to do with an index. So basically what you're doing here, this is the actual HTML that you're injecting within the JavaScript function. So this is how you inject the HTML inside the Java, and this process is called JSX code. So that's the idea of doing it this way. Okay, so this part is done. So your HTML is done within the function, the JavaScript function. So this is just basically to get the idea of the output that you will have in the UI. Now you have to make another function, which is the function for to-do form. Now this to-do form function that you're doing is for adding the items into the input field. Yeah, that's a add function. So in this case I haven't done the add button, but only the add function, because when you press the return key it will serve the purpose. But if you want, you can also experiment by doing the add button in the above JSX. So that will be a practice session for you, and you let me know how it goes. So function to do form, the parameter is add to do because it's working as adding work for the to dos. Then you have like this use state hook you'll be using for this variable, and the two parameters will be value and set value. So value is the current value, set value will actually help you to update the current values. So that is the purpose of the use state hook. So react.useState, and then you need a handle submit. Why do you need the handle submit? This is for actually taking the items that you're inputting in the field, input field. Now this is the E stands for the event. So E is the event, which is the change, and target is the element that triggered the event, which in this case is the input value, that is the value of the input element. Now, why E.prevent value default? So that it will actually allow you with form submission, will prevent the page from refreshing and allowing you to handle and process the form submission without causing the entire page to reload. So if there is no value, then you just return, nothing happens. But if there's a value, you add to do with the value, and then again set the value. This is updating, set the value to an empty string. So like before, you're adding the value first, and then after adding the value you clear the input field, so set value. So this is updation that's happening after adding. Then after that you return the form. So again you put the inject the HTML here, the form element, if you remember. So form on submit, this will be the special expression for handle submit. Yeah, so I'm putting the handle submit element within the curly braces. This serves as a special expression to evaluate this variable and to evaluate this handle submit, and the value will be submitted there, will be output there, as I mentioned earlier. Then you have an input field, right, in the form as usual in the HTML. So input type is obviously going to be text. Class name you call it input, up to you what you want to call it, but this is an input field, so I call it input. And value, again I use the special expression, the curly braces, to evaluate the actual value of the item and the text that you are inputting. So value equals value within curly braces, the special expression. Yeah, and this is the JSX that we are doing now. And on change will be, now on change is going to be the E is the event, that is the arrow function we use here to set the value to E.target, the target dot value. So that is basically what I mentioned just a few minutes ago, that it's the event which will change the target, which in this case is the input value. Yeah, so that means as and when the input value will keep changing, it will update the value. Like first I add an item, then again you add an item, it goes on and on in the form. So that is what's happening here. Now what other function you need? You need another function, which is a function app. Okay, so here what's happening, what are the variables? To do's and the set to do's. So to do's will be the initial state value, and set to do's will be the second variable. This is the updated value, the function that is to update it. So react.useState. So basically react.useState, this is the hook that is used to update the function. Yeah, so you have the original value and the updated value. So here you have start with the text that is input. So let's say it has a value of shop. Whether is it completed? False. That means it's still not done. You show it like that in the initial case. Yeah, then you have different tasks written, for example, book, song, etc., etc. So continue doing your, it's like mentioned in the form of an object, as you can see. Yeah, and this is mentioned within the useState hook function, sorry. So just mention 2 or 3 activities like this, which is already there, and we mention as initial state as being not completed. Is complete false means this is not being completed, it's not a done job yet. Yeah, so it will be done later, we presume like that, as and when the action is triggered. Okay, so this part is done. I'm just kind of just keep on doing how many ever you want to do. I think I've done 1, 2, 3, couple of them. Then you can do more also. That's totally up to you. That's just for example's sake, for doing some pre-existing tasks. These are the pre-existing tasks in the list. Yeah. So for showing the initial state. Yeah. So if you want more such projects in JavaScript and React, do remember to smash that subscribe button and the bell button so that you're immediately notified as and when I post these tutorials. Okay, so you have another variable here, which is the add to do. So I want to make the add to do function as an arrow function. So why is it called a text? Because a to do is actually what I'm adding is a text in the input field, right? So in this arrow function, you have this new to dos variable, and new to dos variable, the 3 dots to dos means it's actually if you remember spread operator, whereby you are deconstructing to all the items to reduce the iterable items to individual items and values. So many to-dos. If you have infinite number of to-dos, you deconstruct them. You use the spread operator to evaluate the individual items. Yeah, then set to-dos, new to-dos. Fine. You're using the set function here to update these new to-dos. So that's the idea of doing it always. Yeah, set to-dos is always for updating. So you are done with that task. What else you have? So now you need to make another one for another function for the complete items. Okay, so complete to-dos, again you make an arrow function here. Similarly, new to-dos will be again deconstruct them using the spread operator to do to-dos. And new to-dos index, always it's index, remember, because you are deciding which item to remove or complete. So new to-dos index dot if the state is completed, you are presuming to be true. Yeah. Okay. Then similar function you do for the remove to do also. Const remove to dos arrow function with index again. Yeah, and do the spread operator here for the new to dos. It's the same because you want every function to evaluate individual items. Yeah. Now there's a slight bit of difference after this, after using the spread operator. In order to delete new to-dos, we use the splice method, if you remember, for deleting items from an array. So what happens in splice, the first parameter is the index. That means at which index you want to remove the item. Second parameter is the number of items you want to remove. Here we'll just write index. We don't know at which item, so we just write index and then comma 1, because here we presume you want to delete 1 by 1. Then set to dos to new to dos. That means again you are using the setting function to update the values. Setting hook to update the values. Okay, then after that, so you've done the completed function, you've done the remove function, you've done the add function. Now you want to return the app, right? The container. Okay, so you need a container div with a class name of app, because all these things are going to come inside the to do app. So we call it an app. You can call it app, you can call it to do app, up to you. So now again within this main container you have another div container with a class name of to do, because overall container is app. Inside that you have another container with to do list, right? The actual to do list. So that's a second container inside the main app container. And you have this, you need to map. If you remember the mapping, you need to use the mapping method for the to-dos to get faster performance, if you remember. Yeah, when there are lots and lots of data, this will actually be more efficient in handling the data and the key value pair. So like you have this particular, at this particular index, whatever data you have and the value you have, right? The value of the to-do item. So if you want to handle that efficiently, it's always a good idea to map them. So to do, and the first parameter and the second parameter index, because you are doing it with the index in mind. So you make the to do app. Inside that you have the to do component. Inside the to do app you have the main to do component. So here you have key value pairs, use index as the special value, and then the index, of course, going to be the index. We are all using the curly braces, as I mentioned earlier, special expressions to output the value there. To do, it will output the value of to do there. Complete to do, it will output the value of completed to do there. Remove to do within the curlies to output the value there. So all these are special expressions to output the value within that component itself. So that's the idea within the JSX itself. So that's the idea of doing this, yeah, within the component. So this was the JSX code that we did inside the main component, app component. So then what is the other app component that you have? The second component we have is the to-do form, which is whereby you are going to be adding the new inputs. So here add to do, again special expression add to do within the curly braces inside the to-do form component. Yeah, so container is closed. Export default of, this is the usual standard idea in order to execute the React to the UI. So React DOM.render, the first parameter is always the app. What do you want to render app? Where do you want to render? So you want to get that particular container, a document.getElement by ID, the container. Here it's a container, you can also call it root, because in the HTML, div ID is container here, so I use the container ID, but if I had called it root, I would have used the root. So that's up to you. Yeah, so the CSS I've already done for you because this is more about JSX and React. So I'm not going into the CSS. It's very pretty simple. You can take a look and let me know if you have any problems. And let's see if it's actually rendering now. And remember, I'm using the JSitter code editor. So you need to add the React development, React DOM libraries also. So after adding all of that, create React class as well. Let me see if it's being rendered. The app is being rendered. Yeah. Okay. So after doing all that, this is quite pretty simple to use the JSitter. You can try downloading it from the Google Play Store. Okay, so this part is done. Let's see what's happening. I think something wrong somewhere, so we might need a bit of debugging here. Sorry for some typo. Let's see. Use state. I must have done something wrong in the import statement. No, that was pretty okay. What about the hooks that I've used? Sometimes, some capitalization might also make a problem. Okay, yeah, here set values. Actually, the first word is supposed to be small letter. The second part is supposed to be starting with capital V. It's always like that, the norm in React. So by mistake, I did both capitalization. So that's the mistake that was done. So this should be pretty right soon. Let's see if it's happening here. Okay. Any other mistakes before we get started? Okay, should be fine, more or less. Okay, let's save it. And remember to save while you're doing in your code editor, because it happened to me once. Yes, here you go. All the pre-existing lists are there. I am able to strike through and complete. I'm able to delete them. Yoo-hoo, done. Now, am I able to add something new? Yes. I am just trying to fool around writing something. JavaScript, yes. I can strike through, means it's a done job. I can delete if it's deleted. I want to delete it, if I want to remove it, that is. I just write something, just playing around, trying to add new things. Okay, tutorial called debugging, because last 3 minutes was about debugging. So remember this, I purposely didn't remove this part because I want you guys to get frustrated trying to do it and then figure it out yourself. So that's why I added this. I know it's very funny. Okay, so keep tuned and don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Don't remember to forget. Okay, and don't forget to remember. Okay.